Well, good evening, guys and girls. It is the Sunday night rant, and I'm proud to be back at home delivering you a 20-minute live stream information session on why I believe that win-win is bullshit. Why win-win is in fact something that sounds beautiful, that we want the training world to sort of deliver to us and say, hey, everyone can be happy. And I want to talk about that. Hey, Sean, look forward to seeing you tomorrow. Ash Heckles, good on ya. Keep those results coming in. Chris Garan says, how are you, Levendi? Amit, how you going? Mate, keep your eyes on Amit. That guy there is an agent that is on fire. Ryan Christopher Watkin from the UK, how are you, my friend? Hope you're keeping your weight off. Mark Sully, another great performer from the Harcourts team in Greenacre. Deb, how are you? Good to see you all. Let's get this audience building up, because I want people to have the no fluff, no bullshit approach to negotiation. And I want you to understand that, particularly if you're a real estate agent, you need to get very clear. Negotiation to me is part chess, part poker, part read the play, which is EQ, sales EQ, right? It's all those three things happening at the one time. And I want you to understand that there is a team that you're up against, right? And for instance, when you're negotiating with a buyer, I want you to be super clear. You are in a team. There is a game going on, and that game means that you're playing against another team. That is the buyer. You are representing the vendor, and that is your team. So when you turn around with a nice, warm, fluffy, statement, oh, it's win-win. So what we'll do is we'll drop 5 and you pay an extra 5. Hey, I want you to be super clear. Negotiation is your obligation to maximize the result for your team. Who is your team? Your vendor. One of the biggest compliments I've had in recent weeks was walking to an auction in the southwest of Sydney for Century 21 at Bankstown. And as I walked, I heard one guy say to another guy, shit, guess who's auctioning? It's that guy. And I looked around, and then the agent said to me afterwards, he goes, that bidder had the shits. He reckons he's been to 10 of your auctions, and he's convinced that you make it basically impossible for anyone to buy a bargain. So I've got to let you know, I think in the world of real estate, you should take it as a compliment when the market sees you as being people that are very, very focused on helping their vendors. Hey, Kevin, there's another great real estate agent. And I think we've got a video on this week, Kevin, off the top of my head. So guys and girls, I want you to get this idea, this warm and fuzzy idea that it's win-win. No, it's not. The stakes are high, and your obligation is to represent your team. Your team is your vendor. Your team is also yourself. When you're sitting there in front of a vendor negotiating your commission, there's another scenario for us to look at when you're negotiating your commission. Like, how can it be win-win? The truth is, you're doing your best you can to get the highest fee. And they're doing the best they can to actually pay you the lowest fee, right? So at the end of the day, you don't turn around and say, hey, win-win is, hey, I'll drop a little bit, 0.5%, that way that you're happy. So gang, let's go through some really important principles in negotiation. The first one I want to talk to you about is the number one reason why people are poor negotiators is this. They have an empty or very, very low pipeline. Think about that. Why do real estate agents appear desperate Think about it, because they don't have a lot of opportunities coming up. And when you don't have a lot of opportunities coming up, what that does, it makes you become needy. And when you become needy, you can't control your emotions. And when you can't control your emotions, you can't control the negotiation. That's right. That's an important point to take. Listen to me carefully. Negotiation management is emotion management. And can I just give you a word of advice? You should never, ever be negotiating with a vendor on your fee, with a vendor on a price, with a buyer on a property, if you're tired, if you're emotionally drained, or if you're hungry. These things will not help you. Trust me. Those things affect your mood, affect your emotions, and at the end of the day, negotiation is about having discipline with your emotions. And I want to share with you a very important law, and that law is called the law of need. And the law of need says this: the person who needs it most loses. The person who needs it most comes through being desperate. The person who needs it most will actually make an irrational decision. So the secret is, don't get into a position where you're desperate and you're needy. A wonderful story of George Clooney, which I shared with you many years ago, on one of his first 2 years of auditions, where he'd go to audition after audition on a weekly basis. And what happens is he'd go in and he'd pitch, and he always missed out. And on this particular time, he went to audition for a role, and he walked in and he did his thing. And at the end of it, he turned his head, walked out, and as he was walking out, head down, feeling despondent, the producer said, "Mr. Clooney, is there anything wrong?" And George Clooney looked back and he says, "I'm just desperate." And they said, "We figured that out. We noticed. Mr. Clooney, we'll let you go now, but we're going to give you one word of advice. And that is, Mr. Clooney, stop being desperate. Stop thinking about yourself and start thinking about the problem you're solving for the people that you show up for a role for. I want you to know, Mr. Clooney, every person that walks in there, we've got our fingers crossed that that person is going to change our lives. So I suggest to you, Mr. Clooney, think about the problem you're solving and address that. We have a problem. That's what you should be focused on. And stop selling and start solving. Guys and girls, that advice, my friends, is the advice I want to share with you right from the outset tonight on this Sunday night rant. And that is, stop focusing on yourself and start understanding what negotiation is about. It's about the iceberg. Listen to me very carefully. I want to explain to you the iceberg. The iceberg, my friends, is, if you look at an iceberg, what you'll notice is this: the top of the iceberg, which is above the surface, can be quite big, and that's what you see. But in fact, the largest part of the iceberg is under the water. It's massive. And I want you to know that in negotiation, what we sometimes do is make our decisions and we present based on the iceberg that's available on the surface. And I want to let you know that clients, to protect themselves, don't show you what's really going on below the surface. They'll only give you certain bits of information, which means it becomes really hard as a salesperson to actually diagnose and prescribe to solve their problem. And that's why I say that the greatest real estate agents and the greatest salespeople I meet are people that ask incredible, great, open-ended questions in such a seamless way that they don't sound like they're an FBI interrogator. And what happens is that there's this flow in this conversation where they're under the surface iceberg information comes out. And then what you can do is you can actually construct a narrative and a solution to those clients' problems based on the real issues. If you want to make more money in sales, you have to solve more problems. And if you want to solve more problems, you've actually got to understand the problems. And I'm also going to say to you that if you can get into a position where you're not desperate, where you're not needy, where you come across as relaxed, confident, and assertive, that's, my friends, is where you win the game. And I also want to let you know, and this is going to be very controversial, listen to me carefully. You never negotiate till they've picked you. I'll say that again because for many of you it's going to be confusing. Your brain can't process how fast those words came out of my mouth, and you're thinking, but how's that possible when they need the fee to pick you? Listen to me carefully. First, what you do is you make sure that you are the agent of choice in their eyes. Then you negotiate the fee. Because if you negotiate the fee before then, think about it. Your fee is not a negotiation. Your fee is your sales presentation. Because what you're saying is, I don't have that much more to actually offer. That fee is my competitive advantage. So the truth is that fee only comes in a negotiation, and a negotiation happens after the sales process. After they've turned around and they said, shit, he's got a great strategy. He understands us. We like him. He's going to solve our problem. I've got proof and evidence in that. He showed me there's a plan here that I know what I'm going to get. And I like and I trust this person. Then the fee comes into the equation. Does that make sense? I hope you get that. Because if you can get that, you'll begin to realize that one of the key things that a great salesperson does is they hold the power and the leverage. And how do you hold the power and the leverage? Hold the power and the leverage by not giving away your power. And what's giving away your power? Early on saying, this is what I charge. Think about it. It's only going to go down from there if they're going to use you anyway. Guys and girls, a couple of other things I want you to understand. Negotiation, it's a complex thing because there are two things going on. One of those, by the way, if you're enjoying this rant, it would mean the world to me if you shared this. To share it, there's a button below, you just press share and you can share it to your friends. Guys and girls, I want to share with you another very important concept, and that is that you've got to understand that negotiation has got two things. It's a dual process. On the one hand, you've got empathy, right? You've got empathy. You've got to be soft. But on the other hand, you need an outcome. You've got to be hard. So it's these two processes that are going on. It's this dual process of empathy. Because one thing you've got to understand is that every client in real estate and in most industries, apart from like buying a watch in Bali, right? It's a one-off transaction. You'll probably never see that vendor again. And what happens is that's it. There is no lifetime value of a customer. Listen to those words. Lifetime value. You see, in the business that we operate in, real estate, mortgage broking, or most sales professions that have a cycle, a sales cycle, it's not just straight off transactional one off. You have a lifetime value in a relationship. So you've got to have this ability where you are managing resentment from people that they're paying more, right? So it's this balance. And all I'm going to say to you guys and girls is that for me, rule one is you ensure that they pick you first before you negotiate. The next thing is this. One of the favorite things in my life is when people say, Tom, we really want to do work with you, but your fee. I love that because that basically says to me, I've got the business, right? Those are beautiful words. Don't freak out when you hear them. We like what you've said, but your fee, right? Don't freak out. That's positive. They're coming to you. They want you. They wouldn't be saying that to you if they didn't want you. So don't lose your emotion temperaments, right? Guys and girls, a couple of other things I want to share with you that I think is super critical. And that is, listen to this story. Many years ago, maybe 25 years ago, I'm selling a house. It's the day before a long weekend. And me and my wife are heading off to go to Byron Bay. As you can see, I've had a love affair with Byron Bay that goes back, 30 years. We're about to go. It's a long weekend in Sydney, and we were going to drive to Byron Bay. And my wife was at home getting everything packed ready. We were going to do the half trip that night and then the half the next day. And I was having a second inspection on a property with some buyers. And on this occasion, all I wanted to do was to get home, pack and get driving because I was already running late. Subsequently, what happened is these buyers who'd come back for a second inspection were spending they were there for half an hour and I just wanted to leave. And I'm sitting there, guys, yeah, what do you think? Yeah. And I was just getting don't get me wrong, I love making sales, but on this occasion, I was running late and I really wanted to get home so we could start the drive to Byron Bay. And then when we walked outside, I said, guys, I'll just leave it with you. You got the long weekend. Have a think about it. Talk to you on Tuesday. They said, but what if it's sold? I said, oh, look, highly unlikely. I'm not going to be around, but, look, should be good. Talk to you on Tuesday. No, but how do we actually secure it now? And in that instant, I realized the law of need. The person who needs it most has emotions that drive their behavior. And I want you to understand that for me was a big learning. Like if I'd walked out there, guys, what do you think? Come on, it's a great house. Do you want to buy it? But what it was the fact that I was detached, and detachment is a key thing. If you're too attached to something, people can tell that you'll do anything to get a deal and they get turned off, commission breath, right? Attachment on the surface sounds like, oh, if you want it badly, you'll win in negotiation. It's a paradox because what actually happens is the emotional contagion. Emotional contagion is this energy that can't be seen, but it's like wind. It goes from one person to another person. What actually happens, as Amit says, is that walking away from a negotiation makes the person want it even more. The law of need. Don't forget it. May I give you a word of advice? Worry about your pipeline. Your pipe is your life, because your pipeline allows you to not be needy and desperate, and being not needy and not desperate means that you've got confidence and you're assertive, and that's what people want from you. And I've got to tell you, guys and girls, life flows a lot better when you're like that. A couple of other things. I want you to understand that there's a term in negotiation, and all the experts use it. It's called BANTA, 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 best alternative to a negotiated agreement. You see, guys and girls, when I'm negotiating with a buyer, with a vendor, like I did on Saturday with a vendor, I'm looking for BANTA, best alternative to a negotiated agreement. What I say to myself is, if this person doesn't do this deal now, what will they do next? What can they do? What's the best alternative for them, right? And that's where having the ability to go on the bottom of the iceberg, below the water, allows you to actually dig deeper and to actually move a conversation and a client on that path. The best alternative to a negotiated agreement, I'll give you an example. You see, a vendor says to me, "Oh, Tom, we're not going to be selling, and I know what you're saying. We've had 150 people look at this property in 4 or 5 weeks, but we're not happy. We're going to hang on to it." Okay. And you're going to do what? We're going to keep it. Okay. And how long will you stay here? We'll just wait. We'll just wait, even if it means we've got to wait. We'll come back on the market in 2-3 years' time. Okay. And let's assume in 2-3 years' time you get your price. What will you do? We'll then sell, and then go where? Oh, and then we'll move into the home that we want to buy. And what's that home? Oh, we want a bigger home for our family. Okay. And you'll get your price in 2 years' time, but do you realize that there's 2 parts to this book? Part 1 is what you sell for, and part 2 is what you buy for. Do you realize that when you get your extra $50,000, the house that you're going to buy is probably gone up by $100,000, which means that you're actually going to be $50,000 behind by waiting. And in addition to that, your family's growing in those 2 years. So you actually miss out on the luxury of having your family in that property. So the truth is, right here, right now, you're actually better off making a decision to accept this offer and move forward to a home. You're not only going to be better for your lifestyle, but you're also going to be doing it with $50,000 in your pocket. Do you understand what I mean about going underneath the iceberg, understanding the best alternative to a negotiated agreement? And I've got to tell you, like in a listing presentation, guys and girls, what does that basically mean? Maybe you should know what your competitors are doing, because that's going to be the alternative that your clients that you go out doing listing presentations to are looking at, right? So if they don't go with you, they're going to go with 1 or 2 or 3 of the other agents. They're going to talk to them. And what I've got to say to you guys and girls is this: it makes a lot of sense for you to have a good understanding of what some of the strengths, weaknesses of those other agents that you're up against are, because it's going to help you in your negotiation with a client as to why they should go with you versus the others. And that's because you've got an understanding of what their alternative options are, which is the BANTA. And I also want you to understand, one of the key things that you're going to have to work out in negotiation is that there's a thing called safety bias. And safety bias basically says that our brains are more aware of what could go wrong versus what could go right. I'm going to say that again. Safety bias is our brains are more aware of what could go wrong versus what could go right. And what this basically means is that you've got to ensure that when you've dug deep below the iceberg, that you're able to give them an alternative that, my friends, is going to allow them to have a future better with you than with not you. And there's two ways that you do that. And the best way to get people to move towards you, because we understand with safety bias, they're concerned about more what might go wrong than what might go right. So how do you get someone to move and make a decision to go with you? It's called micro commitments. Some people call them mini closes. You see, a micro commitment gets people to slowly move forward towards you, and it doesn't feel like a big move when they actually sign a listing agency agreement. It's these small steps that are moving them in that direction, and they're seeing as they move in that direction that, hey, it's not too scary here, and you move along the cycle. So guys and girls, I also want to share with you that for me, it's very important that you understand that everything I've said here is totally irrelevant and it's bullshit unless you're dealing with a client that can act. So you need to have, whether it's a buyer or a seller. Let's talk about a seller. All this is irrelevant unless the seller is in the listing window opportunity, which means that they're an immediate seller. Too many people are going in and negotiating with people that aren't in the listing window. They're talking to them about their commission and their marketing campaign, and they're actually not a high probability client that's going to be doing business now. They're not coming onto the market for some time. Or when you're dealing with buyers, like dealing with a buyer that is not going to be making a decision in the next 3 months means that they're not an immediate buyer. So for me, having some really great qualification questions, like in listing, asking them on the phone when you're setting the appointment, can I ask you, have you made a decision that you will be appointing an agent in the near future? When you're dealing with a buyer, asking the buyer, I'm just curious, what's the best time you've seen so far? Great. And what stopped you from buying that one? I mean, that's useful to know. If they've stopped buying, what stopped them from buying is they're not looking at moving till 2023. It's useful to know that. So everything I've basically said is super relevant in situations where you've got immediate sellers and immediate buyers. And again, I can't stress to you the importance that the pipe is life. And can't stress to you more important that you should never, ever, one of the biggest mistakes is you start negotiating too early. That's a big, big killer. A big, big killer in negotiations is, I'll give you one example and then we're going to finish off, guys and girls. I get a phone call. They say, Tom, we want to book you for a conference in March next year. The borders are going to be open. We want to have a great conference. I want to ask you, what's your fee for a 90-minute talk? I said, what's my fee? I said, listen, before I give you my fee, would it be okay if I ask you 3 or 4 questions? Because I don't even know whether I'm the right person for you. I mean, I could maybe recommend someone else depending on exactly what you need. So I said, can I just ask you a few questions? So then I asked a few questions. So I held off giving my fee. I said to them this, if you had a great conference in March, can you describe to me what that would look like in your eyes? And the client went on to say, well, what we'd want to do is to ensure that we covered a lot of scripts and dialogues. Our people are really struggling at getting people to come onto the market. And they're also struggling with getting high fees. And they're also struggling with agents that are giving zero marketing or throwing in cheap marketing. So we want a lot of scripts and dialogues towards that. I said, okay, is there anything else that if you had the best conference of your life, what else? We'd want we don't want a sugar hit. We want this to stick, right? We want this. We don't want people just to get pumped and then go back to work and yeah, do nothing. I said, okay. And what else? And they said, yeah, we want to make sure that, we can give them something. I said, okay. Tell me what this sounds like to you. If I came along to your conference and I gave them 17 scripts on managing the commission and I did some live role plays on the stage, and in addition to that, I gave them 13 scripts on actually getting more vendor paid advertising. And what I actually did is brought someone on stage and we went through a whole vendor paid presentation together. And then in addition to that, what we actually did is produced for everyone their scripts Bible, which I would actually record on video just for you. And everyone would get a copy of it because they'll take shit notes and they'll forget about it. And in addition to that, 30 days after the conference, we're going to have a accountability webinar. And what we're going to do is check in with people because everyone's going to set goals with me at that conference. And then what we're going to do is actually check up on them. And I said, how does that sound? He said, Tom, if you did that, that would be brilliant. What's your fee? I said, $7,700, including GST. And he goes, oh. I said, yeah. He goes, it's a little bit more than our budget. And I said, okay. And there was just silence. And he says, what could you drop it down to? We really want to make it happen with that, but that is just like a lot more. I said, let me ask you, what would have to happen for you to say, let's do it? You're the boss here. You call the shots. You're a decision maker. I'm having this conversation with you because I'm sure we can work it out. He said, would you do it for 5? I said, I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll do it for 6 including GST. And we did a deal. Guys and girls, if I'd given him my fee too early, we wouldn't have got there. And I'm saying to you at a listing presentation, often we bring in fee before they've picked you as an agent. Then they don't need you anymore. They've got that information. Guys and girls, I want to thank you so much. I'm pleased to let you know that we are about to get ready, preparing 4 courses, mini courses that are dropping into the real estate gym, an advanced listing presentation course. We're doing some new scripts and dialogues that are going to be available for our members to be using. And in addition to that, we're actually doing a digital mini course on everything you need to know on all the new algorithms and what real estate agents need to be doing for retargeting and digital marketing. And then we're also doing a template to help people set up 2021. We'll be doing a lot of mini courses in the real estate gym. There's a lot of preference for people that have structured mini courses, and that's what we'll be doing. Guys and girls, I want to thank you so much. I want to let you know that for some reason I've fallen in love with that great band, Tame Impala. I have listened to the song Borderline 150 times today. Guys and girls, looking forward to having a great week. Melbourne, it's all fantastic. The doors are open. Anytime Fitness is open. You can get out. You can do everything. The federal election in America, new president, guess what? It doesn't affect you. You're still going to do your exercise every day. You're still going to make your phone calls. You're still going to be talking to your daily vendors. You're still going to invest in personal development yourself. You're going to eat clean. You're going to drink water. You're going to think possibility, not think probability. And you're going to leave the rest of the dickheads worrying about everything else. Signing off.